Alright, so in this next video, I'm going to show you guys how to add the animated GIF to full screen background of your storyline project. And we're also going to create a new slide that doesn't have the animated GIF on it. So we'll just have a splash page that has the animated GIF, and then in the same project on the next slide, we'll have it be completely blank and just a white slide so that you can, or white screen so that you can see that you can use the animated GIF and switch between each of those. So open a new storyline project, and the first thing that I like to do in my projects is to remove the next and previous slide buttons that are here. So I'm going to go ahead and select the properties gear on my base layer, and I'm going to uncheck the previous and next buttons. The next thing that I like to do is open the player. So we'll click on the player, and then I'm going to get rid of all of these settings that show a menu, resources, title, and all of that, because it takes up space in our file. Our project. So I like to have just kind of like a clean artboard to work with here. So as you can see, we still have our player. And another thing that I like to do is I like to go into my colors and effects, and I have an all transparent player already selected here that I had created. So I'll link you guys to a tutorial that was already created on this so that you can do this yourself too. So I have mine already set up. I'm going to click OK. And then the next thing that you want to do is you want your main slide here, you want it to be completely transparent. So I have my stage here, and I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to go to Format Background, and I'm going to make that 100% transparent, and then close that out. So we have pretty much, just our board here to work with. And then in order to see what we can put on top of that animated GIF, what I'll do is I'll just put in some dummy text for right now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I've added some text to this slide, although you can't see it. I want to have there be a white text so that it contrasts with the animated GIF. And if I did change this color here, you can see that it's right there. And I might do a lot more styling to this later, but for right now, we just want to see where it's positioned and how it shows up. And the next part of this, we're going to be adding in the JavaScript that will allow us to add in that animated GIF. And I'm going to grab this from a tutorial that I already did on changing backgrounds. Now the next part of this is going to be adding in a trigger that executes the JavaScript for us. So I've grabbed the bit of code that we need to do this, and I'm going to go up and create a new trigger. And we want to choose an action from this dropdown of executing JavaScript. And I want this to start when our timeline starts. So we're going to click this More button here on the script, and I'm going to paste this in. And I'll share this code with you as well. So we want to call our image whatever we named it. So I'm going to call it subway.gif. And then I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to say OK again. And where is the GIF? So right now the GIF is living on my desktop. So what I will have to do is when I publish my file, I'm going to actually have to copy and paste that GIF into the folder so that it recognizes it and we'll pull it into our project. And that's what we're going to be doing next. Let's go ahead and publish our project. I'll go to File, Publish, and I like to publish for web to test it out. So I'm going to uncheck the Use Articulate Mobile Player for iOS. I'm going to rename this title, and then I'm going to select Publish. Alright, so we published our file, and now we want to go into the folder where all of our files are. And what we want to do is we want to copy and paste that GIF into this folder here. So what I'm going to do is go to my desktop where I put my compressed version. I'm going to select copy. I'm going to go into that folder, and just right here in the main folder, I'm going to post that GIF. And the reason that I'm putting it in the main folder is because I indicated that it was in the main folder. I didn't create any subfolders in my code, but you can definitely do that if you feel comfortable with doing that. All right, so we have the GIF in there, but there's two more things that we need to do in order to make sure that this works. So what we need to do is, I'm just doing this for the Flash version. I won't get to the HTML5 version. So I'm going to right click on my story file, and you can open this with a text editor, or you can open it with like a code text editor, which I'm going to open it with. So I'm going to open this with Sublime Text, and I'm going to change two things in the file. I only need to change two things, and then we'll be able to play this. I've opened my file with Sublime Text, and now what we are going to do is I want to click on the find button, and I know the thing that I want to find is I want to find the window. So I'm going to search for window, and this window here, we want to set it to be transparent. So I'm just going to type in transparent. And the second thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the background color is also transparent. So if you see here, this BG color equals the hex code of white, and we don't want that set to white, because what will happen is there will be a flash of white before our animated GIF shows up in the background. So if you delete all of this out and then save again, that should do it for this. Now that we've made those two changes, we can view the story file. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to open my story file with Firefox. And as you can see on here, we can see our public transportation safety text that we added, and we can see our animated GIF in the background. So this looks pretty good, but what I'm going to go ahead and do later on is I'm going to go and style this a little bit more so it looks a little bit more modern and sleeker, and that the text looks a lot bigger in comparison to this background. Our next step is going to be to go ahead and create a second slide. So I'll add a button to this, and that will be in the same project, but we won't have this animated GIF in the background. Now back to our storyline project. I've gone ahead already and I've created a button that will go to our next slide. And what we want to do is create a new slide, and I'm going to have a blank slide added here. And in this blank slide, what I want to do is I want to uncheck this next and previous again, and I want to set the background to go back to just blank. I don't want that animated GIF playing any longer because we're inside of our project now. So I'll go back to my first slide here, and I'll copy that script from the execute JavaScript trigger, and I'm going to go into my second slide, and I'm going to create a new trigger, the action of executing JavaScript when the timeline starts. I'm going to go and paste that script in there, and where it says subway.gif, what I want to do is I want to leave this completely blank. So that's going to tell us that we don't want any kind of an image in this background. So I'm going to click OK. And then what we're going to need to do is you can add anything to the slide, but what we want to do is we need to republish this, and then those three steps that we did before, so the step of copying and pasting the GIF in and changing two of those lines of code, we have to redo those, because when we republish a project, it gets rid of anything that we did in that folder. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. So go ahead, go back and publish this, and then we'll redo those steps. Okay, so I've republished my file, and as you can see, that subway GIF is not in here. So I'm going to do the same thing over again. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to copy this, I'm going to paste it into the folder right here. I'm going to right click on the story. I'm going to go down in this and find the window. I'm going to change this to transparent. I'm going to make sure that this is left blank. I'm going to save it, and now I'm going to reopen my story project again. Let's go ahead and check out what that looks like. I'll open it again in Firefox, and you can see we have our button here and the public transportation safety text, and when I click enter, it takes us to this completely blank slide because in our storyline we have the second slide as blank, and we changed our background to be blank as well. So that's it for this tutorial. I'm going to go ahead and style this project a little and share it with you guys. I hope this was super helpful, and I guess just tune in next time for my next tutorial.